and we're going to be signing a very important deal today. It's Doge. Some of the things that we found, which are shocking. Billions and billions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse.
For a reminder for anybody that gives a fuck about the constitutional order, Doge is supposed to be refashioned from the USDS, the United States Digital Service. This is where they draw their legitimacy from, and they try to say that Obama started it. He did start the USDS. That's just supposed to be to help offices basically streamline their paperwork process, get stuff like digital ready, like just to basically make systems more efficient. Now, they said on paper that that was supposed to be what they were doing. However, finding waste, fraud, and corruption, that's squarely outside of the realm of just digitally making things better. So the scope of the job is expanded. The legality is not questionable. It's illegal. With the mission that Doge has been enacting to go and discover waste, fraud, and abuse in other departments is not something that the executive office of the presidency can be tasked with. It's outside of the role of that office. But just they try to say this. Just remember when you hear this, waste, fraud, and abuse, that's not in the purview of the president to go to every department and discover on his own unilaterally and then to dismantle them if he doesn't like what he finds.
The goal of Doge, and I think a significant part of the presidency, is to restore democracy.
Also, just as a quick thing, this is always there's a strange thing that happens in the United States where two different parties can claim a popular mandate, the president and the Congress, because both are voted on. Some guy theorized that if the United States ran into issues, that it would be because of it would be an issue relating to the fact that the president could claim that he has a mandate from the people because he's got a popular vote that stands in opposition to the mandate that Congress has as like a voted on body of leaders. I only say this because when you hear somebody say that the president is working through the will of the people, like what Elon keeps saying, this is authoritarian speak, that we don't need the Congress, we have the people. Right? I feel like every bad guy villain, doesn't Bane say this like a million times in The Dark Knight Rises? The people, we are letting you, the people. It's always, we are authoritarian, but it's okay because we have a mandate from the people to be authoritarian. It doesn't matter if 100% of the country votes on you as president. That doesn't mean that you can just start doing things that aren't in the purview of the executive branch. That's not what that means. Yeah, and then also remember, keep in mind like how fluidly we move from thing to thing. So for the longest of time, before they had the popular vote, we're not a democracy at all. We're a constitutional republic. We don't live in a democracy. This is a constitutional republic. Democracy. But now that Trump won the popular vote, we're a democracy. What do you mean the president can't do whatever he wants? We're a democracy. More people voted for Trump than the other guy, so we're a democracy now. Now the president can do literally whatever he wants.
And if you have rule of the bureaucrat, or if the bureaucracy is in charge, and then what meaning does democracy actually have? If the people cannot vote and have their will be decided by their elected representatives in the form of the president and the Senate and the House, then we don't live in a democracy. We live in a bureaucracy. So it's incredibly important that we close that feedback loop, we fix that feedback loop, and that the public's elected representatives, the president, the House, and the Senate, decide what happens, as opposed to a large unelected bureaucracy. This is not to say that there aren't some good...
All of this ultimately hilarious because Elon is an unelected bureaucrat. That's exactly what he's doing. That's his role right now. As an unelected bureaucrat, he's now going through federal agencies and deciding what he wants to keep and what he doesn't want to keep, but okay.
To a large unelected bureaucracy. There are quite a few people in the bureaucracy who have ostensibly a salary of a few $100,000, but somehow manage to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are in that position.
Like this is none of your business. I'm sorry, but so is Doge in charge of investigating the net worth of individuals who work for government now? What does that have to do with anything? It's not in the purview of your job. Wasn't in the purview of the USDS. What is it in the written purview of the Doge authorized by executive order? It's like, what? So if you're a government worker and then you somehow have a high net worth, now you're going to be investigated? What does that mean?
Which is, you know, what happened at USAID. We're just curious as to where it came from. Maybe they're very good at investing, in which case we should take their investment advice, perhaps. But just, they seem to be mysteriously, they get wealthy. We don't know why.
Like, what do you mean? Like, that's none of your business. What do you mean? They mysteriously get wealthier. We don't know why. Who cares? Is there evidence of corruption or something? Why are you even looking at this? Like, what a strange way to evaluate. Like, imagine I'm doing like an audit of my company, and I notice, hold on here, Jader Vernanda, why are you worth so much money? I Googled your net worth, and I see you're worth $5 million, but I only pay you guys minimum wage to work on my servers, and it's a low minimum wage too, because those guys are all from Indonesia. How the fuck are you worth so much money? So now I'm gonna like publicly announce that there's some full-on investigate. Like, this is just wild.
Why? Where does it come from? I think the reality is that they're getting wealthy at taxpayer expense.
The reality? I like how he just said. Why am I watching this? Like, think about what's being said. So we have a government employee, 6-figure salary. Somehow, I don't even know how, but somehow we know their net worth. Wait, did you Google it, or did you see it reported on your fake news platform X? We see on X, people are saying this person's worth a lot of money. Well, the conclusion is obviously they're stealing from the government. How the fuck, you dumb motherfucker? How the fuck did you get to that part? What, excuse me, can we even get like a shred of evidence? Like, can we even get like a third order removed indication of some kind of wrongdoing? Or, well, like, what are we talking about?
I think the reality is that they're getting wealthy at taxpayer expense. That's the honest truth of it. So, we're looking at, say, if you look at, say Treasury.
Is he about to start throwing out figures when we have no evidence for anything that's been so far? What the fuck?
For example, basic controls that should be in place, that are in place in any company, such as making sure that any given payment has a payment categorization code, that there is a comment field that describes the payment, and that if a payment is on the do not pay list, that you don't actually pay it. None of those things are true currently. So the reason that departments can't pass audits.
He's saying there was no clear reason for the wealth that they accumulated. It's fair to ask how you attained your wealth. Excuse me, what? In what world? If your boss, first of all, how do they even know? Would be number one. Like, unless an IRS is, like, there's an IRS audit or something because you're not paying your taxes. What do you mean? Why the fuck would they ever even have access to that information? Why should they have, like, what are you talking about? Also, this whole, him pointing out like one or two of these random fucking things is so stupid.
Is because the payments don't have a categorization code. It's like just a massive number of blank checks just flying out the building. So you can't reconcile blank checks.
They're public officials, dude. Their financials are all public. No? No. What? You think that just because somebody's a public... Bro, we don't have Trump's taxes. The president of the United States. You motherfuckers were happy with this orange buffoon not even showing you his financial records. And you think that you're entitled to know the financial, like every single financial aspect of every single public servant?
When you understand that really everything is geared towards complaint minimization, so then you understand the motivations. So if people receive money, they don't complain, obviously. But if people don't receive money, they do complain. And the fraudsters complain the loudest and the fastest. So then when you understand that, then it makes sense. Oh, that's why everything just, they approve all the payments at Treasury. Because if you approve all the payments, you don't get complaints. It's not draconian or radical, I think. It's really just saying, let's look at each of these expenditures and say, is this actually in the best interest of the people? And if it is, it's approved. If it's not, we should think about it.
Like, he sounds like every single middle manager that software employees used to complain about, where like a guy comes in. Actually, Elon got caught doing this even with Twitter, and he's like, "Hey," and all the devs are like, "What's up?" And he's like, "I was looking at the code earlier," and it's like, "What code?" He's like, "All of it." He's like, "Okay." He's like, "I notice you guys don't have comments on every single line," and it's like, yeah, nobody does that. Well, I read that comments are good, and I think it would be way easier for everybody if you guys made sure that after every line of code you put a comment, just so that we know what every single thing does. Like, this is because I read somewhere also, like, are we on Ruby on Rails yet? I heard that was a good new thing. Like, everything he says just sounds so fucking retarded. It reminds me when he was talking about on Twitter, when he was on a space, and he was like, we need to refactor the whole stack. And then some guy shows up who's, I guess, like an actual software dev. And he's like, hey, what do you mean when you say that? Like, what part of the stack don't you like? And he's like, well, all of it. And the guy's like, well, what's bad about it? And he's like, well, it's got high ping or whatever. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, it's the most, all of it is the most retarded shit in the world.
And then there's a whole bunch of Social Security payments where there's no identifying information. Well, like, why is there no identifying information?
Like, if you ask these questions, it's also funny when people do that. This is also like, it's the number one indicator of a person who is, I would say 65 IQ or lower. Like, they're right at the threshold for autonomous breathing and heart beating. Like, if they were any dumber, they would forget to breathe and die. When somebody will come up and ask a question, has anybody ever asked this thing before? And it's like, actually, yeah, it's like one of the most commonly asked questions ever. Have you never read about that? Like, did you ever ask anybody? Like, people come up like, has anybody ever wondered why this? And it's like, well, you literally have a fucking direct line to the president. Why don't you ask him to ask the people that run these agencies? Like, why not just say like, hey, why do we have this? Because you know what? There might actually be a really good explanation. Why don't you try that before you go to the public and just start presenting all of these insane conspiracy theories? Like, why not ask a question one time to any of the employees? Maybe?
Obviously, we want to make sure that people who deserve to...
This screams of him not coordinating with anyone at the agency to understand how things work and why they're set up the way. Yeah, because he doesn't. That's not what they're doing. Him and his little crony, little coup-fuck employees are just running into these agencies, and then they're locking everybody out, and then they're putting their dirty, filthy little fucking USB drives into all these systems and sucking out all the info to see what stupid shit he can, shit on Twitter the next day. And then anybody that gets in his way, he emails his little daddy Trump and says, can you please fire these people? And that's basically what they've been doing. They're just run amok.
I'll tell you another crazy thing. So, one of the things is like we are trying to sort of right-size the federal bureaucracy, just make sure that this, obviously there need to be a lot of people working for the federal government, but not as many as currently. So we're saying, well, okay.
Like, what does that mean? There needs to be a lot of people, but not as many. According to who? According to you? Like, first of all, I don't even know if you're allowed to fire people in the federal government, like the executive branch. I'm not sure if they can, because I think it counts as is it called downsizing? I don't know if you're actually legally allowed to just start firing a bunch of people in a department, because I think that you're actually mandated by Congress not to do. You can't just start downsizing an executive agency without authorization. But like, even with what he's saying, like there should be a lot of people, but less. How did you even arrive at that conclusion?